Extend. Sahayagya prajashrishta Uruvasa prajapati Anena chasanishyatvam Eswarosi Takadu. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, "Be thou happy by this yajna, sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you all desirable things." Next 11. Evan Bhagavatanenya Devanayanaduva Parasparam Bhavayantaras Devaparapachita. The demigods, being pleased by sacrifices, will also please you. Thus nourishing one another, there will reign general prosperity for all. Next 12. Yistan Bogani Bodheva Dasyante Yagyavaditaha Harvatam Badayayto Yogukte Stena Eva Saha. In charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods, being satisfied by the performance of yajna, the sacrifice, supply all necessities to man. But he who enjoys these gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly indeed. Verse 13. Yagyashistasina santo muchante sarvakilvishani munjate te tuham pava yegachantyatmakarana. The devotees of the Lord are released from all kinds of sins because they eat food which is offered first of sacrifice. Others who prepare food for personal sense enjoyment verily eat only sin. Verse 14. Anadavanti bhutani parjanyana sambhava yagyatavati parjanyo yagyakarma sambhava. All living bodies subsist on food grains, which are produced from rain. Rains are produced by performance of yajna, sacrifice, and yajna is born of prescribed duties. Karma brahmo bhavam dehi brahmasya samubhavam tasmat sarvagatam brahma nityam yajna pratishthitam. Regulated activities are prescribed in the Vedas, and the Vedas are directly manifested from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Consequently, the all-pervading transcendence is eternally situated in acts of sacrifice. Evam pravaritam chakram nanuvartayate hara agayo indriyaramam moham partha sachivati. My dear Arjuna, a man who does not follow this prescribed Vedic system of sacrifice certainly leads a life of sin, for a person delighting only in the senses lives in vain. Text 17. Yasvatmadati eva atmadritta samanava atmaneva cha santushtas tasya karyam vidyate. One who is, however, taking pleasure in the self, who is illumined in the self, who rejoices in and is satisfied with the self only, fully satiated, for him there is no duty. 16. Naivatasya kritenarto nakritene kaschana nachachitharva bhuteshu kashtirartha vipashaya. A self-realized man has no purpose to fulfill in the discharge of his prescribed duties, nor has he any reason not to perform such work, nor has he any need to depend on any other living being. Text 19. Tasmada sakta satatam karyam karma samachara asakto yachalam karma param apnoti purushaha. Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activity, one should act as a matter of duty, for by working without attachment, one attains the supreme. Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed, otherwise work binds one to this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction. In that way, you will always remain unattached, free from bondage. Purport. Since one has to work even for the simple maintenance of the body, the prescribed duties for a particular social position and quality are so made that that purpose can be fulfilled. Yajna means Lord Vishnu, or sacrificial performances. All sacrificial performances also are meant for the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu. The Vedas enjoin, Yogyo vai Vishnu. In other words, the same purpose is served whether one performs prescribed yajnas or directly serves Lord Vishnu. Krishna consciousness is therefore a performance of yajna, as it is prescribed in this verse. The Varnashrama institution also aims at this for satisfying Lord Vishnu. Varnashrama-chara sata purushena paramam Vishnu Aradyate. Vishnu Purana 3:8-8. Therefore, one has to work for the satisfaction of Vishnu. Any other work done in this material world will be a cause of bondage. For both good and evil work have their reactions, and any reaction binds the performer. Therefore, one has to work in Krishna consciousness to satisfy Krishna or Vishnu, and while performing such activities, one is in a liberated stage. This is the great art of doing work, and in the beginning, this process requires very expert guidance, and one should therefore act very diligently, under the expert guidance of a devotee of Lord Krishna, or under the direct instruction of Lord Krishna himself, under whom Arjuna had the opportunity to work. Nothing should be performed for sense gratification, but everything should be done for the satisfaction of Krishna. This practice will not only save one from the reaction of work, but will also gradually elevate one to transcendental loving service of the Lord, which alone can raise one to the kingdom of God. I'd love to hear any comments on this verse and purport. So, in the Vedas, give the supreme goal for all living entities to be Vishnu. And that's actually, that's given in all of them. So some scholars, they like to say that the older Vedas are kind of separate from, they say that there's older Vedas and there's newer Vedas, basically. So they try to understand it in a historical aspect. But the Vedas are actually eternal. And they make this mistake using their imperfect senses. But actually, they say, like for instance, they say that the Rig Veda is older than the Bhagavad Gita. They're not understanding properly. They're trying to study this from some mundane, materialistic point of view. But they say like this, but this is bogus because you can go back and you can read, you can see Prabhupada actually gives. I don't know exactly which purport it is, but he gives so many verses from Rig Veda, from the different Puranas. Here we have one. Vishnu Aradyate, from the Vishnu Purana. Okay, that one's a little, it's coming from Vishnu Purana, but there's verses that Prabhupada gives from the Rig Veda, like that the, yes, that one. Vishnu Param, anyways, Paramam, so yeah, then glorify Lord Vishnu. Lotus feet, Lord Vishnu is here. So, this understanding that's given by these speculators and anthropologists is not very inclusive. They haven't understood properly. One has to understand the Vedas according to the spiritual master, the devotees of the Lord. Where Prabhupada says in the purport. Therefore, one has to work in Krishna consciousness to satisfy Krishna. And while performing with this is the great art of doing work, and in the beginning, this process requires very expert guidance. One should therefore act very diligently under the expert guidance of the devotee of Lord Krishna, or under the direct instruction of Lord Krishna himself. So that's the process for understanding the Vedas. Then we have to understand it under the expert guidance of the devotee of the Lord. Devotee of the Lord understands the direct instructions of Lord Krishna. We may not understand. Krishna gives simple formula that one has to be his devotee and friend in order to actually understand the real intention of the Vedas. And he says many times that he's the goal of the Vedas, he's the compiler of the Vedas, he's the knower of the Vedas, and by him, by the Vedas, he is to be known. So Krishna is actually the object of the Vedas. So one may disregard this injunction of going through the proper person, a spiritual authority to understand this great, unlimited, eternal, vast body of knowledge. Say, all right, I'll just pick a place and go there, see what's there. I'm curious. But that kind of curiosity kill the cat. No, it's not very intelligent. When one is understanding any kind of subject, any kind of higher subject in school, he has to approach the teacher. He doesn't just pick up a calculus textbook and go, all right, where am I going to read from today? And point there. He won't understand anything. First, you have to understand the basics, then we can understand. And the Bhagavad Gita, in particular, the ABCs of spiritual life. The Bhagavad Gita is so important because in order to have a strong foundation in our spiritual life, we have to understand the Bhagavad Gita. And just because it's the ABCs doesn't mean that it's inferior. It's actually the topmost. It's transcendental. All these literatures about Krishna are transcendental. They're perfect. So just by hearing the Bhagavad Gita, which provides a strong foundation for spiritual knowledge, then we can attain perfection. And the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives very pertinent understandings about, who he is in terms of his, being God and the Supreme Lord. So we have to understand that Krishna is God. And what does that even mean? We have to understand these things. God is the supreme absolute reality. So he's the source of the multifarious energies that we see around us. This reality, he's the source of this reality. And that's a pretty big position. And before we go on, we have to understand that who Krishna is. As God. We have to understand the science of God. The knowers of the absolute truth, they've understood it in three features: Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So those are three features of God which are given three features of the absolute truth which are given in the Vedas to understand. And Krishna very nicely speaks in such a way that we can understand the category, the hierarchy here. That first is Brahman, then Paramatma, and then Bhagavan. Bhagavan being the master word in the absolute truth. So it's often mixed around. People often mix this around because they'll jump into the Vedas and they'll read a verse which will, they'll misinterpret, take it out of context that Brahman is situated higher than Bhagavan or Paramatma is the goal. But Bhagavan is the last word. Bhagavan means the possessor of all opulences. So Krishna often says that Aham Brahma,
Tishta.
yeah, Brahma he Pratishtha, yeah, that he possesses them. Because Bhagavan is the possessor of all opulences, he possesses them. Similarly, he manifests himself in the heart of all living entities as Paramatma. And so, the impersonalists, they understand the Brahman feature, the yogis, they understand the Paramatma feature, but the bhaktas, the devotees, they understand Bhagavan. Krishna makes it very clear that yogi namapi sarvesham bhagavate nantarama sharaman bhajate yomam samayukta tamom. Makes it very clear who's the topmost transcendentalist. It's the bhakta. Because he's understood the topmost transcendental subject matter, which is Krishna himself, Bhagavan. And the devotees are very careful to understand it in the proper way. We understand it in the proper way. We take Bhagavad Gita very seriously. We don't jump over Bhagavad Gita and go to Krishna's more intimate pastimes. That happens too. This jumping around causes a lot of calamity because it doesn't allow for proper understanding. We have to understand it from the teacher. Oftentimes, the teacher, we're so puffed up that we think that we can handle this. The teacher is very merciful and will help us realize that actually, let's just stick to the meat and potatoes here. We need all the strength we can get. We're coming a long way in the material world, contaminated by lust and greed and anger and all these different things. We're just not fit to understand the spiritual truths. So the spiritual master is so mercy that he makes us fit. He makes us fit by instructing us what we should do now in this position we found ourselves in. And we read the Bhagavad Gita so that we can understand who Krishna is. It's God. He says, Bhutanam Ishvaro Visam, that he's the Lord of all living entities. So we should know that first. Who the Lord is, who my Lord is, who the source of my life is, who my Father is, my Supreme Father. We should know that first. And we should know that glorifying Him and working for Him and using our intelligence to perform our duties, our work for Him, that's where we're at. That's where we're at. We can understand Him in that way. You can't understand Him in speculative processes. Atashi Krishna Namani Nabhavekayam Sevan Ijudu Swayam Eva Spuratana. If we just can't understand Him through these speculative processes, through gross material senses, we won't be able to understand Him. So we have to engage in glorifying Him. We glorify Him as the Lord sees within all the hearts of the living entities. He's the Lord in which the material manifestation is being maintained, and the whole spiritual, unlimited spiritual sky is being situated by His power, by His potency, by His opulence. So we should understand Him as the source of all opulences, strength, power, fame, beauty, like that. Understand His position. That's the science of God. We're starting with service, serving Him in that way, with that understanding, and working up to the most perfect conception of God. just giving in the 10th canto, but you don't jump around. So these are just some points, some practical points that I'm kind of highlighting here in this purport. Because Krishna says work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. This is chapter 3, Karma Yoga. So this is very early on in the Bhagavad Gita. And these are some practical instructions for us here. So Krishna first begins with speaking about the preliminary stages of transcendental knowledge, which is knowledge of the soul. Krishna establishes very nicely the objective reality of the self within, seated within the heart of the living of the body. And the word is jiva. Jiva refers to the living entities who are the body, various bodies. And Krishna very nicely establishes the objective reality of the soul for our benefit, because that's the preliminary stage. Spiritual subject matters, we should understand that, and I'm not this body. And it's a very logical thing. I remember having a conversation with somebody one time, and he was grossly foolish, as Krishna puts it. He's one of the personality like that. I mean, so am I, but I had some theoretical understanding of what Krishna was saying. So he was arguing that I'm just a monkey, and he was saying that I'm a monkey, and at the time of death, that's it. I'm done. I'm finished. There's no more. There's no more. And logically, that doesn't make any sense, because I'm saying, well, before you were here, how do you know that you didn't exist before this life? Well, it's okay, I can't remember it. I don't remember existing. But that doesn't really mean anything, because you say, okay, well, where were you on June 5th of, 2013, or whatever? There, I don't know. I don't remember. It's like, oh, when did you exist? Yeah, I existed. Why do you exist then? So our existence goes back. Just because we don't remember, the living entity is full of forgetfulness too, in Krishna state. So just because we don't remember. There are pictures somewhere of our previous life. Maybe we were some businessman somewhere living in whatever, 1950s. There's pictures of us still circulating the planet. We just don't know. I don't remember. We don't remember so many things. I don't remember where I was 10 years ago. It doesn't mean anything. Similarly, body's undergone so many changes. But here I am, still the same person. So we can see that. At the time of death, a similar thing will happen. There's another change of body. And shouldn't be bewildered. So anyways, Krishna gives some nice points there on that, and our Srila Prabhupada, he backs it up with nice logical sentiments, which are the practical way to convince people with intelligence, is to give them logic about the existences. So we might not be able to, because the soul is transcendental, it's beyond the perception of the senses, and it'll be difficult for somebody who accepts that process as being the highest way to receive knowledge to accept that. But with logic, we can understand it. We can understand that. Your body has changed, your mind has changed, and still here you are, the same person. You exist now. You existed then, even when you didn't remember. And you will continue to exist. There will be a time when you forget about this very moment. You exist now. You will exist now in the future. The Krishna says that no. But Trayvam Jatanasam Natam Nene Janadabam Chayat Nisham Sarva Vayam. So anyways, he gives that in the second chapter. So here we are in the third chapter, where Krishna is now talking about karma yoga. To act, to dovetail our material addiction, our addiction to fruitive activities, to dovetail that propensity in the service of the Lord. This is devotional service. So, let's continue, let's teach in text 10. In the beginning of creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods, along with sacrifices for Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, Be thou happy by this yoga, sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you all desirable things. The material creation by the Lord of creatures, Vishnu, is a chance offered to the conditioned souls to come back home, back to Godhead. All living entities within the material creation are conditioned by material nature because of their forgetfulness of their relationship to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Vedic principles are to help us understand this eternal relation, and it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Vedaista Sagar Aham Eva Vedya. The Lord says that the purpose of the Vedas is to understand Him. In the Vedic hymns it is said, Patim Vishvasyat Vishvasyat Neshwar. Therefore, the Lord of all living entities is the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu. In the Srimad Bhagavatam also, Srila Shukadeva Goswami describes the Lord as Pati in so many ways. Shriyapati, Yagyapati, Prajapati, Diyampati, Lokapati, Dharapati, Patiekatish, Chandaka, Vishnu, Sattvatam, Prasidanam Me Bhagavan Satam Pati. Bhagavatam 2.4.20. The Prajapati is Lord Vishnu, and he is the Lord of all living creatures, all worlds, and all beauties, and the protector of everyone. The Lord has created this material world for the conditioned soul to learn how to perform yajnas, sacrifice, for the satisfaction of Vishnu, so that while in the material world, they can live very comfortably without anxiety. Then after finishing the present material body, they can enter into the kingdom of God. That is the whole program for the conditioned soul. By performance of yajna, the conditioned souls gradually become Krishna conscious and become godly in all respects. In the age of Kali, the Sankirtan Yajna, the chanting of the names of God, is recommended by the Vedic scriptures. And this transcendental system was introduced by Lord Chaitanya for the deliverance of all men in this age. Sankirtan Yajna and Krishna consciousness go well together. Lord Krishna in his devotional form as Lord Chaitanya is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam as follows, a special reference to the Sankirtan Yajna. Krishna Varnam Tusha Krishna Sango Pangastra Parshanam Yajna Sankirtana Praya Yajanti Yusudaya. So the Vedas is meant to know Krishna, and the Vedas provide prescriptions and paths for coming to that through yajna. Yajna means sacrifice for Vishnu. Vishnu is the Prajapati. So he's the Supreme Lord. From him all living entities are coming, all worlds, all beauties, everything. He's the provider of everyone, the protector of everyone. So he's the main object of worship and sacrifice. He is that person. I mean, this is just a fact of life, feature of life. We've understood this, that we come into this world and we're servants. We're servants of our parents. We're servants of every society. How many things? We have this desire for sense pleasure. And because we have this, we're willing to serve somebody and get something in return. So we've done this practically our whole life. This is our nature. This is who we are. And now we're realizing, due to the Vedas, that actually that propensity is most suited, or it's actually meant for Vishnu, worshiping Vishnu. And because Lord Vishnu is Prajapati, that means Praja means the living entities, and Pati means the Lord, or the maintainer, or the master. So he's the master of the Praja, the living entities. And because of this, then there's no reason. There's no reason, we literally have no reason not to. Once we hear this transcendental message about Lord Krishna in his position, and what we have to do, it's our duty, we have to do it. Right? We have to do it. Because from all levels it's intelligent. I want sense gratification, nobody can give me sense gratification except for God, because he's the master of my senses. You know? So I want liberation from suffering. Well, I'm being tormented by so many things that are out of the jurisdiction of all living entities that I see. You know, maybe the demigods are there. But ultimately, even they can't give liberation. Only Lord Vishnu can bestow that. Only Lord Vishnu can give bhakti, which is the highest benediction. You know? So, really, this is what we have to do. Although this is important to know this. You know, if we don't know, we'll take it very cheaply. We'll just be interested in reading about Radha and Krishna's pastimes and not understanding anything. Taking it to be some kind of, you know, romance, one-day romance or something like that. So we have to understand in this with actual position of the Lord. From the real perspective, our real perspective, we're conditioned living entity in this material realm. So we have to understand our relationship with Krishna. We have to approach him. He's the Supreme Lord. Approach him like that. And the Vedas give the regulations by which we can become steady and regulated in our performance of yajna. So many nice rules and regulations are given for us to become regulated in the discharge of our devotional service. So that way we can attain success. Primarily coming to the mode of goodness, coming to the Brahminical standard of life, and serving the Lord according to the dictations of the spiritual master and the Shastras, becoming a Vaishnava. Automatically one becomes a Vaishnava because to the Brahminical platform. So becoming a Vaishnava. Serving the Lord according to the way that the Lord wants to be served, which he gives in the Vedas. Clearly, the Vedas are glorifying Lord Krishna, Lord Vishnu as Prajapati. He's got this position, so we should understand it. And then then we can engage in service to him once we understand his position. That's practical. You know. Vedas are very practical. They're complete. Everything you need to know about God is there. It's so nice. So nothing is missing. So let's move on. Text 11. The demigods being pleased by sacrifices will also please you. Thus nourishing one another, they will reign general prosperity for all. The demigods are empowered administrators of material affairs, supply of air, light, water, and all other benedictions for maintaining the body and soul of every living entity are entrusted to the demigods, who are innumerable assistants in different parts of the body of the Supreme Personality of God. Their pleasures and displeasures are dependent on the performance of yajnas by the human being. Some of the yajnas are meant to satisfy particular demigods, but even in so doing, Lord Vishnu is worshipped in all yajnas as the chief beneficiary. It is stated also in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna himself is the beneficiary of all kinds of yajnas. Bodharam yajna tapasam. Therefore, ultimate satisfaction of the Yajnapati is the chief purpose of all yajnas. When these yajnas are perfectly performed, naturally the demigods are charged with the different departments that supply these, and there is no scarcity in the supply of natural products. Performance of yajnas has many side benefits, ultimately leading to liberation from the material bondage by performance of the yajnas. All activities become purified. As it is stated in the Vedas, Hare Shuddho Sattva Shuddhi Sattva Shuddho. Dhruva Smriti Namde Sarva Grantinam Vipra Moksha. As it will be explained in the following verse, by the performance of yoga, one's eatables become sanctified, and by eating sanctified foodstuffs, one's very existence becomes purified. By the purification of existence, finer tissues in the memory become sanctified. And when memory is sanctified, one can think of the path of liberation. And all these combined together lead to Krishna consciousness, the great necessity of present day society. So the demigods are supplying so many things. There's different kinds of demigods. There's the chief administrative demigods like Lord Indra. And then there's the more powerful demigods like Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is often mistaken for God, being the Supreme Personality himself. But we should know factually his position, that he's chief demigod of the material world, that he's in one sense, he's the father of the living world, the material world. So, it can be easy to mislead, but the Vedas ultimately place Lord Vishnu worship as being supreme. Because actually the real thing that sustains us, because we're not these bodies, when we're taking these bodies, we might need, yes, water, material necessities, and demigods are there, and the material world can supply those things to the conditioned body. But the real thing that sustains the actual living entity of the soul is Lord Krishna himself. Whereas we're the energy, we're the marginal energy, the Tashta Shakti of Lord Krishna. So he's the real person who sustains our existence, our real existence. So the most essential thing to do is to turn towards him, worship him, and like that we'll be satisfied beyond material, all material needs. So, we can have all the food in the world, we can have everything in the world in material sense, but we won't be satisfied. And if we have devotional service to Lord Vishnu, Lord Krishna, then we'll actually be satisfied, even if we're devoid of everything. Because that's the real essential thing. Is that devotional service, that love, that love shared between the living entity and God. No, that's what we're hankering for. Actually, really, because that's the only thing that will satisfy us. So ignorance, we're not really aware of that. And so we're thinking, if I get more of this, money, or more houses, or more cars, or more wives, I'll be satisfied. But that's not the fact. Only by engaging in devotional service and relishing that and tasting that Krishna Prema, then we'll actually be satisfied, because that will nourish our real existence, our spiritual existence. That's the thing that will nourish our real existence. Well, that will be satisfying. Therefore, the Vedas point us towards Vishnu, who's our real beneficiary. He's our real friend, he's our real father. And so many nice ways to serve him. Offering him palatable foodstuffs, sanctified edibles, and then honoring those sanctified foodstuffs. Then one's existence becomes purified. And then we can think about Krishna. So nice to think about Krishna because Krishna's form is all blissful, all eternal, full of knowledge. So what better thing to think about than Krishna? That's Krishna's instruction. What we have to think about that. Simply just by performing a sacrifice of offering animals to Krishna and honoring them, one can attain perfection in life. So it's the mercy of the Lord. Next, text 12. In charge of the various necessities of life, the demigods being satisfied with the performance of yajna sacrifice simply supply all necessities to man. But he who enjoys these gifts without offering them to the demigods in return is certainly an evil. The demigods are authorized supplying agents on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. Therefore, they must be satisfied by the performance of prescribed yajnas. In the Vedas, there are different kinds of yajnas prescribed for different kinds of demigods, but all are ultimately offered in the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For one who cannot understand what the Personality of Godhead is, sacrificing to the demigods is recommended. So it's interesting. Some parts of the Vedas, they glorify the demigods, and one who's basically jumping around, he'll might read that and he might think, oh, this is a polytheistic thing, where there's many demigods, but so, but actually, we hear that the demigods are just part of Vishnu. So really, when the demigods are being glorified and worshipped, actually, it's within the context, the framework is there that they're part of Vishnu. They're different parts of his body, and they're performing different functions. They have no separate existence outside of Lord Vishnu. Similarly, at the same time, they're not completely identical. That's one of the offenses of the Holy Name. Shiva says Vishnu, Yoguna Nama Isaguru. Diya Binam Taslet Saguru Hari Nama Hitakara. That one cannot consider that the names of the demigods, like Lord Rama or Shiva, are one and the same with Lord Vishnu. But at the same time, we can't consider that they have a separate existence. Because they don't. We just have to understand it in the hierarchy, just like you have a body. It's like I might glorify my heart as being a nice organ, which is doing a lot of work for the body, but I can't take it that my heart is useless it's useless on its own. But the real thing there is that it's a part of a much larger personality, which is ultimately the soul seated within the body, and ultimately the super soul, and so on and so forth. But we have to understand all these things in the right context. That's why we have to understand the spiritual aspect. Because he gives us the understanding. Where Vishnu is the Supreme Personality of God. Establish that, that's a fact. Read the Vedas, you will come across them. But if you jump around, you might also come across different things that will perplex you. But understanding in that context, it makes perfect sense. Lord Indra, chief of the demigods, administrator demigods, he's glorified as part of his Supreme Lord. He's performing that wonderful service to folks. Taking care of the living entity by supplying rains. But if we also study Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll see that Lord Krishna's position as Supreme Lord is established very nicely. He even stopped his father Nanda Maharaj from worshipping Lord Indra and got him to worship the Supreme Lord, Lord Krishna himself, in the form of Govardhana. And Indra was very upset, and he sent torrential rains down on Vrindavan, and Krishna protected the inhabitants, drove away Lord Indra. And ultimately Lord Indra surrendered and offered wonderful prayers to the Lord. Oh, it's for way over time. Sorry about that. Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is today.